Welcome to Networks Professionals.
All right, welcome to the Explainer. If you've ever stopped to wonder how billions, literally billions, of devices manage to seamlessly connect to modern IPv6 networks, well, you are absolutely in the right place. Today, we're exploring SLAAC. We're going to see exactly how devices take matters into their own hands and connect to the internet completely on their own. It's really fascinating stuff. Okay, let's dive into this. In traditional IPv4 networks, your devices rely heavily on a central authority, like a DHCP server, to hand out IP addresses. You know, it acts almost like a strict traffic cop, controlling exactly who gets to go where. But what if a device could just bypass that bottleneck entirely? I mean, imagine a smartphone or a laptop getting online with zero central server oversight. No wait times, no logging. It sounds a bit chaotic at first, right? But in the IPv6 world, it is beautifully and efficiently orchestrated. Section 1. The magic of SLAAC. So, SLAAC stands for Stateless Address Auto Configuration. It's essentially this incredible plug-and-play IPv6 mechanism that empowers devices to automatically generate their very own, globally unique, and fully routable IP addresses. And the absolute magic word here is stateless. This means it accomplishes all of this without ever needing a stateful DHCP server to track and log every single assignment. It is pure, efficient autonomy at its finest. Section 2. The three-step process. To pull this off, the client device pieces its identity together through three really distinct stages. Step 1. Router advertisement. Step 2. Address generation. And Step 3. Duplicate address detection. It's a highly logical, almost elegant sequence of events. Let's walk through exactly what happens at each of these stages to get a device fully up and communicating. It all kicks off with Step 1, Router Advertisement, or what we usually just call an RA. The local network router constantly broadcasts these little network beacons out to any connected nodes. It's essentially standing in the neighborhood with a megaphone saying, "Hey, welcome to this specific network, and here's our routing prefix." This broadcast gives the client device the absolutely crucial first half of the information it needs to configure itself. Now, to get specific, that router broadcast provides exactly the first 64 bits of the address. If you think about the vast landscape of an IPv6 address, this 64-bit prefix acts as the network identifier. It's kind of like a zip code. It routes traffic to the correct subnet, ensuring data reaches the right local network segment, and it completely leaves the specific node identifier for the device itself to figure out. Which brings us right to Step 2, address generation. This is the exact moment where the independent device completely takes the wheel. Since it already grabbed the subnet prefix from the router, it simply appends its own locally generated interface identifier to finish the address. Actually, think about that for a second. No centralized server has to dictate what this specific node identifier should be. The device just does it. And, just like the network prefix, this locally generated piece is exactly 64 bits long. The device calculates this second 64-bit half internally. It is a perfect, even 50-50 split of responsibilities between the network's router and the client device that's connecting to it. And this brilliantly illustrates how the two halves come together. The router's 64-bit network prefix and the device's 64-bit interface identifier merge perfectly to form the final 128-bit globally unique IP address. We now have a complete, routable IPv6 address constructed entirely on the fly, no centralized tracking slowing the whole shebang down. But there is one final sanity check, which is Step 3, Duplicate Address Detection, or DAD for short. Look, even though the mathematical odds of two devices generating the exact same 128-bit address are, frankly, astronomical, IPv6 protocols leave absolutely nothing to chance. The device essentially checks with the local network neighborhood asking, "Hey, I'm about to use this IP. Is anyone else already using it?" Once it confirms there are no address conflicts, boom, it's officially ready to route traffic. Let's move to and see how this builds. Section 3, Building the Interface ID. So how does it build that second half? Well, there are two primary methods to generate the specific 64-bit identifier. The first is EUI64. This method dynamically creates the ID by using the device's permanent unique MAC address. It basically takes your hardware address and literally pads it with the characters FFFE, right, smack in the middle. It's incredibly efficient. But because your MAC address never changes, that IP fundamentally tracks your specific hardware. Pitted directly against that, we have privacy extensions. This completely flips the script by generating a random temporary ID periodically instead. And let's think about the real-world stakes here for an everyday user's digital privacy. If your smartphone used its permanent hardware MAC address for every single network it ever joined via EUI-64, advertisers, or, malicious actors, could track your movements across different Wi-Fi networks effortlessly. To prevent that network tracking and maintain anonymity, privacy extensions ensure your device essentially wears a temporary mask. A mask that changes constantly, keeping your identity perfectly secure and untrackable, while still fully utilizing the magic of SLAAC. So, the crucial point is, Section 4, SLAAC and DHCP v6 hybrid. Here's the catch. While SLAAC is absolutely brilliant for giving your device a usable IP address and ensuring the router keeps zero tracking logs, it leaves the device completely without crucial details, specifically supplementary network configurations, like DNS servers. And without DNS, your device has an IP, sure, but it can't translate a web address like google.com into a usable destination. You're connected to the network, but functionally, you are totally lost. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it shows network administrators deploying a hybrid mode. This is where SLAAC and DHCP6 team up as the ultimate solution. SLAAC handles the heavy lifting, assigning the usable IP address while remaining completely stateless and fast. Then, DHCP6 steps in solely to hand out the essential supplementary configurations, like your DNS information and domain names. It's the best of both worlds. You get the incredible speed and privacy of SLAAC, seamlessly combined with the robust configuration power of DHCP6. And if you're watching this and looking to actually set up SLAAC, or this really powerful hybrid mode for DNS resolution in a real-world environment, you'll be happy to know it's widely supported. You can refer to excellent vendor-specific documentation depending on your exact setup. Whether you're diving into the Cisco IPv6 SLAAC configuration guide, checking out Fortinet's SLAAC implementation, or just enabling it directly on your Linux or Windows boxes, the foundational concepts we just walked through apply across the board. But of course, giving devices the power to autonomously configure their network identity opens the door to some brand new challenges. Think about it. If devices are just blindly trusting router advertisements to build their IPs, how do you secure SLAAC against RS spoofing? What happens if a malicious actor pretends to be the router and broadcasts a totally fake prefix? Now, that is a provocative security question, and definitely a critical concept to explore next as you continue to master autonomous networking. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning how your digital world is built.
Thanks for watching.